Is your daughter still in school?
All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to our city council, everyone that's here in our meeting place, and all those out in TV land. I've asked Councilman Scopes to give us an opening prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day, grateful for the opportunity to be able to live in this community, in this state, and in this free country. We ask a blessing to be upon us this evening, that our hearts and minds might be open, we may be able to express ourselves clearly and be able to be understood as well as to understand. We're grateful for the safety in which we enjoy in this community. Pray for our first responders, that they might be able to do their duties and stay safe as they do so. We pray for the leaders of our state and of our country, that they might be able to make wise and righteous decisions for the benefit of all citizens, that they may be able to do that which is right. We're grateful again, Father, for the safety which we enjoy, for the opportunities and blessings that we have. And this we do pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. And I've asked council member to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand and repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, let's move down to Public Division of the Year. Who's going to take that? Oh, you wanted me to wait on that one, did you? Oh, I was thinking here. Excuse me. All right, we'll come back to that. How about Business of the Month?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. So, some of the citizens of Spanish Fork may or may not know this, but Spanish Fork is a business with the Chamber of Commerce. Some of the things that they do for us is donate, or let us use, I should say, land for the farmers market, for the Easter egg hunt, for whatever you want to put out there. There's a lot of things that we do as a chamber that the city allows us to do. 2020 was a hard year for the business community, and still continues to be that as we are going through things. Spanish Fork took a lot of time to evaluate how they could help us as a business community. I guess I should have introduced myself at the first of this. I'm Jesse Carden, the chair in the Chamber of Commerce for the Spanish Fork Salem area. Sorry about that. But Spanish Fork City collaborated with some of the chamber, some other businesses within the area, and asked, how can we help? What can we do? And took some of the CARES Act money and a little bit, I don't know for a better term, put their money where their mouth is and said, we're going to help. One of the first initiatives that they did was that they said, hey, we have to provide PPE. We've got to keep people safe. So the city came up with a plan. The city workers, the city staff, the city council, the mayor, and they put together a program where businesses would write in and say, hey, we need 12,000 masks. I don't know if that was a number, but they put in a number. And they said, we need this much sanitizer. And the city said, you got it. And they made sure that the businesses had it. They teamed up with the chamber to do that and to make sure that happened. It was a great relationship. There are businesses in the community that have told those in the chamber and in the city that they were not sure how they were going to make it because of the extra cost that the program was going to, or to have those PPE items was going to cost them. But this made it so that they could not only reopen, but they could be successful in their business. So then we go forward a little bit more. There was still some CARES Act money available, and they put together what they called, I think they called it Shop Local, am I wrong in that name? Which was an initiative where the city gave every resident, and most people in this room probably saw this, a coupon or 3 coupons to spend $25 at a local business, or up to $75, at a local business for free. That was money that they could use. We saw lots and lots of responses for that. Now, why do I say all that? We, as a chamber, every month vote on a business of the month. The idea was brought forth that Spanish Fork City should be considered that business of the month because of the things that I just said. When we first told the city that had happened and that they were actually voted and had won that, they were like, no, we're not that business. But without them as a business, without the city employees, without the efforts that they have done this year, some of our businesses might not have made it through what they did. And so I'm here to present the city and the city staff that have put in a lot of work with that business of the month, with the plaque and with the banner. And I hope that you, as a city, will display that proudly, because it doesn't go without notice what the city did this year. So from the business community, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse.
Seth, you want to tell us a little bit about that shop local, the details and what came in on that?
Sure. Do you want me to be a nerd about it, or do you want me to be...
Well, just normal nerd.
Just normal? Okay, just be myself. Sometimes I get a little geeky with the numbers. It's tremendously successful. The city sent out just under $900,000 worth of vouchers, as Jesse mentioned, in these coupons. And as we did research on other programs and their success rates, if you will, how well were these shop local type of programs, they generally had a 50 to 60% redemption. And so we were hoping that we would fit into that same category, 50 to 60%. But as of today, we're sitting at 69% redemption. And so we'll certainly surpass 70 and be greater than that. What that means is, as of this moment, we've had 610,000 vouchers turned in. $610,000 worth of vouchers, or almost 25,000 of those little coupons turned in, almost 25. And they certainly have been well used. And really the goal, as we talked through this with the mayor and council, the goal of the elected officials was to help both groups, residents and businesses. And we figured there's money that you can give directly to a business, or there's money that you can give to a resident. But if you say, here's some money that you have to use at a business, then both groups get help. And we really saw that. And I think you probably have some better stories than I from some of our local businesses and or residents saying how cool that was for them. But I'm trying to think of the numbers. About $250,000 was spent at restaurants. A handful of restaurants received more than $20,000 worth of vouchers just themselves, probably 4 or 5. And then just all over the place. What do I have? About 200 different businesses received a coupon in some value or another. Yeah. What else you want to know? Is that enough?
Very successful. That was good. I'd give you another 2 hours, but time's going on. But yes, and we really appreciate that honor. We didn't seek it, but I think it was a great program. It helped everybody, helped Spanish Fork, and all that money stayed right here in Spanish Fork, and so it benefited everybody. So thank you for that honor. Okay, now let's go to the public works. Sorry, Chris. I had you mixed up here with the chamber.
Okay, every year in Public Works we have a annual report, and this goes on for a day or two, and each division presents their accomplishments for the previous year, and they present their their plan going forward and some of their goals and what they want to accomplish. Then after this annual report, we have 5 from administration get together, and we meet and we talk about which division should be the division of the year, and we do a vote on that. And this year, the wastewater division received that. And some of the reasons why they were voted in start back a couple years ago when we had a major aspect of the treatment plant fail, a digester, and put us in kind of an emergency situation for several months. And a lot of unpleasant, long hours were spent trying to keep the city going without this digester. And this group behind me figured that out and just really did a Herculean task to keep the city going during that time. Then they also developed the attitude of never again, which I really like, and they really delve deep into the intricacies of how the plant operates and how can we measure and monitor so that we never have a situation like this again. And this is hard because a lot of the improvements that you'd want to make just didn't make sense to make at that point because with all of the nutrient and the algae blooms in Utah Lake, the state had significantly increased the requirements for treatment plants. And so we were at a point where we had to completely rebuild the treatment plant so that we could meet these higher state standards for effluent going to the treatment plant. Yet the treatment plant we had at that point was severely hampered in the way it worked. And so these guys got together and they developed a really good plan for how we can integrate some of the fixes that need to be done now with what our future treatment plant needed to be, as well as an overall long-term plan for how we're going to fund the treatment plant and all of the how we're going to proceed into the future. And this plan really helped us in a significant way. We have Jonathan Ward here from Zions Bank. He was meeting with us early last year, and we were talking about COVID and the effect that it was having on interest rates. And he made the comment, he said, well, interest rates right now, because of COVID, are at the lowest rate they have been since. And he paused for a minute and had to think back a while and finally came up with Adam and Eve. He said that they haven't been lower since Adam and Eve. And that was a great opportunity for us. And because of the planning efforts and for the last 4 or 5 years, looking forward to how are we going to fund this treatment plant, what needs to be done, we were able to move quickly and take advantage of those really low interest rates and save the residents millions of dollars in a very low interest rate loan or a bond to build this treatment plant. And so as we project out into the future and we look at where rates are going to land, even though we're building a state-of-the-art modern filtration type treatment plant that can treat well beyond the limits we're given now. So we're making it future-proof. So if more regulations come, we can meet those regulations. Our rates will still be quite a bit lower than the cities around us and especially cities in the same situation as us. So we owe a lot to these guys behind me, and I've gone and worked with them a few times. I think I've slowed them down a little bit when I do, but I know that they are good, hard workers, and they do a lot for our city, and just really appreciate it to each one of them. And Corey, if you could come up. Corey is the division manager And maybe I'll just read off their names, and we'll give them each a plaque for being Division of the Year. Zachary Clark. Bryce Jackson. Ben Nguyen. Wyatt Chardine. Zach Staley. We have William Paxton and Corey Pierce. All right, hands up.
Thank you.
Just go through here.
We want Corey to give a speech.
Nope. Thanks, Corey. You like work. Thank you.
Hey, good work.
Nice job, gentlemen. Thank you. Good work.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right, we sure appreciate Public Works. City would come to a standstill if it wasn't for those guys, and there'd be a lot of backup. So thank you for the great work that they do. Once again, how many times can I say how great of employees we have here at Spanish Fork, which makes this city a nice, awesome city. All right, let's go into public comments. Anyone that would like to come address the mayor and the council, you can come up to the podium and state your name, and you've got 3 minutes, and we'd love to hear from you if there's anybody here. All right, seeing none, let's go to council comments. Councilman Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. All I have to report is last Monday had a New Era meeting, and the lion's share of the meeting was discussing litigation, ongoing litigation in closed session, so I don't really have much to report where that was a closed session item about our Bayview landfill group. And then the other meeting that I had was the wastewater pre-bid Zoom meeting that we were able to, I see Keith Broadhead back there, that able to hear from some qualified individuals that are looking to help us do some of the design work on our new facility. So we're excited about that. That's all I have to report, Mayor.
Great. Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. First day of the legislative session underway today. Meetings with some of the leadership happened last week with the Utah League of Cities and Towns, which is one of my committees that I sit on. Just really quickly, met with Speaker Wilson and President Adams over Zoom last week. I have the reputation of being the Spanish Fork homer, so anytime that I get on a call with those guys, along with Mayor Caldwell of Ogden City, Mayor Silverstrini of Mill Creek, and Mayor Ramsey of South Jordan, make up the executive board there of the league. But we all talk about what's going on in our cities, and how we're responding to our citizens, how we're responding to the challenges that we face together as cities, and some of them are a little bit more detailed and focused on cities. So anyway, expect a good session. It's going to be different, obviously, with COVID in the mix, just like everything else, to meet with our legislators a lot virtually, but hope to be able to have a productive session, standing up for local, the most local control of decisions that can be made. So we'll keep you posted weekly on that, as well as through the league emails that come through. Really quick, again, just like to thank Jesse and the Chamber for that award, but for the good work they do through this unprecedented year. It's been just a great organization to be a part of, both publicly and privately, and see the good hard work that businesses do to try to help each other out. I will say the success that was just brought up of why Spanish Fork was recognized as the business of the month. A lot of credit goes to some people that don't take a lot of credit all the time, but in speaking last week with Speaker Wilson and President Adams, Utah, and specifically Utah County and Salt Lake County, were very unique in the way that the CARES Act funds were distributed, in that those funds got down to the city level. You can go on a state-by-state basis, and that didn't always happen. And so a state got a big tranche of money from the federal government, and it didn't always make it down to the most local level, those most local businesses. What I'm proud about with our city, but also with the state as a whole, and that was due to some of the leadership of President Adams, of Speaker Wilson, and others, that said, no, we do need to get this money that would be allocated to counties down to the cities. But it wouldn't go that way without the hard work of Mayor Leifson, other leaders that lead cities through the Mountain Land Association of Governments and others that fought for that money to get down here. So the program that was so successful that I've talked to multiple businesses of how, you're right, Jesse, that was really a lifeline to them, especially during the holiday season of people coming in with that money. That was only possible because we wouldn't let up on getting that money down to the local level. And so big thank you to Mayor. I know Seth was involved in a lot of those discussions too, but that's why we're not just spending, a couple of Tuesday nights here, but always trying to advocate for local governments, and the result this time was a good thing. Seth mentioned the personal stories. Just one of my personal stories was from a local business on Main Street that did some cool stuff, and I'm sure this was done at more than just this business. But if you came in, and I had three vouchers worth $25, so I had $75. Went in, had I can't remember, $60 or $65 purchase, right, from this business. And I'm like, well, here's my vouchers, and I know I'm not getting change, but I'm way ahead, getting this with this money. And this vendor says, yeah, give me 2 of those. You give me $50, and you take the other one and spend it somewhere else. And so, my family got to go down the road and get something else from another business in town. So just really cool stories of businesses thinking outside the box, but government thinking outside the box too, that got that money into the hands of citizens, that again put that money inside local businesses' hands. So just a great success story, and both the leadership of the House and the Senate knew about those instances, and we're recognized for that, and recognized tonight for the Chamber. So thank you for that, and thank you to all the businesses that make it happen every single day in Spanish Fork. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Scobes.
Mayor, nothing to report this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Beck.
Can I just say ditto what Councilmember Mendenhall said?
You just did.
He does that so well. I think the only thing is just the Fiesta Days website will go live on February 1st. I know Mayor told me earlier tonight that his class will be having a reunion this summer, and they want to make sure they get their float.
Or 5th.
It's your 5th reunion?
Number 5.
It does have the 5 in it, and it's the first number. So.
Number or 2 numbers? 500.
Yeesh.
Just 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're working behind the scenes, hoping that by the time July gets here, things will be a lot better off than they were last year. So, other than that, things are calm on my committees right now, so nothing else to report.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to express grateful for our city, this award. I am so proud that money came from the federal government to our local businesses and was used in this manner. Grateful for the departments and Seth and these guys come up with this plan to get this money out to our businesses, and it was an awesome thing. And then to see it actually work, and then people excited about doing it, and getting them several phone calls, say, what's these things I'm getting in the mail from the city? Just simply go spend it. So it was a great thing to see that and see our businesses get help from that. Mayor also attended our airport board meeting. The airport's still continuing to grow. They right now are considering a business down there that wants to bring in a parachute company. Trying to work out some logistics there and time. Sound like they do a lot of skydiving, and they need that time. But we're also very busy with our airport and our fixed wing and our helicopter and our fixed wing schools that are going on at our airport. Very busy. Tyler, is it okay if I mention what our EMOD is this year? I mean,
Sure, I don't know that the general public will understand what that is, but.
Well, just real quick, and this is our employees. I attended our risk management meeting, and we have our workman's comp insurance, which is expensive, and we go to great lengths to try to keep that insurance cost down, because that keeps the cost down to our citizens. And this last year we did really well. Our numbers went down, which will save the city thousands of dollars in insurances. And that happens every single year. We get re-rated. It's called an EMOD, and it's a figure that we get, and it went down substantially. And that saves the city thousands of dollars when that happens. So I was excited. It changes each year, and it will change again, but it went down substantially. So the citizens needs to know that the staff and the department work really hard to keep our insurances down for a couple of reasons. Number one, so that our employees can enjoy that benefit, and also that we can keep our employees covered from that workman's comp, so that if they are injured, they're covered. But we also go to great lengths to keep our employees safe, because that's the most important thing, is keep them safe so that they can return home to their families in good condition. So, and that was a good thing. So, Tyler, thanks for your efforts there. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Appreciate that. One thing I want to bring up, there was if anyone looked in the paper, there was a survey across the nation where they ranked cities, large cities, medium cities, small cities, how safe they were. And Spanish Fork ended up being number 11th on this survey for small cities, as being one of the safest cities in the nation. So I'd like to thank all the citizens, especially Chief Adams, for the great work that they do, the way they work with our citizens, and the trust they have in our police department and our citizens here. We've got great people that live here in Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork's a great place to live. I'll sing that tune till the day I die, just how great this city is. And it's nice to see that recognition come to us on a national level, seeing that we ranked number 11th in the survey that they took. And so that benefits all of us, knowing that that's how it works. And so I just want to shout out to all of you for making that happen. All right, let's go to consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing ordinance 01-21, changing the general plan designation text and amendment, the official general plan map of Spanish Fork City for the Del Monte Road general plan annexation. Wow, I got that all out.
Amended.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This item is about the land use element of the general plan, which is your vision for future development, for any land use changes that might come your way, and really has to do with what you think Spanish Fork City should look like in the future. Now, there are two parts to the general plan. There's a map, and there is text that goes with the map. This item specifically is on your agenda tonight because of direction that you gave staff several months ago to review a particular part of the land use map of the general plan. So I'll talk about that for a few minutes, but then also as kind of a sister proposal to that, there are some changes that we as staff have put together that we think make some sense relative to some of the narrative, some of the text of the general plan. I'll probably spend less time talking about that. The real intent with those changes has to do with simply making some things more clear. Certainly some things that I believe tie to the map review that you've instructed us to do. But again, I probably won't get into a lot of detail there unless you have specific questions. Thank you. So that being said, the area along a particular street in Spanish Fork, Del Monte Road, that goes, as I would describe it, essentially from the American Leadership Academy on the north down to Arrowhead Trail on the south, that, as I understand it, is the specific part of the community that you asked us to review relative to what we can see here in this image, the land use map of the general plan. And I'm going to ask Mr. Jacobson to help me for just a minute. I think it's the last slide that we have. If you can go down to that, we call it option 5. This is the current land use map for that area. Now, each of the different colors that we see there means something. I think it's the blue color that we see, which designates those areas as mixed use. I think that's what maybe some concern relative to that particular designation is what led to the instructions that you've given us. That particular designation is one of the more flexible and broad designations that we have in the general plan. It allows for several different things, everything from certain types of retail zones, certain types of residential zoning districts, professional office uses, and really anything that might seem akin to those particular types of things. If you were to refer to the text part of the general plan, you can see indeed that at present there are 7 different zoning districts that the document says are consistent with that particular designation on the general plan. Now let me mention this also just to be clear about what this map means. It's advisory. That is to say that you as a city council, you can take it as you see fit as a guide when you're making decisions about, most likely it would be a zone change. That's typically when this information comes into play, but you're not compelled to follow it, not compelled to follow it precisely, not compelled to follow it broadly, but as we're often instructed, generally we find it to be very good practice to follow the general plan when changes are contemplated. So again, with respect to this particular designation, there are a lot of options that exist. And without further ado, because really a lot of information is contained in the staff report. In fact, we as staff have put together 5 different options for changes from what exists now that you might consider. All of those but one are in the staff report, and I'll describe one in just a minute. I'm going to zero in on the recommendation that staff has made. And as we look at this, I want to mention that we really only have a certain number of tools in the toolbox, if you will. We don't have dozens and dozens of different land use designations with respect to what we're seeing right here. We're seeing a low-density residential designation. We're seeing what we might call a very low-density residential designation, a commercial designation, and the mixed-use designation, just 4. If Mr. Jacobson, if you can go to option number 2 for me there. I think it's a few slides up. This is the one that staff recommends that you consider if indeed you'd like to make any changes to the map. And it indeed is just introducing one other designation to the map. That would have the undeveloped property that's between the property on the corner which currently has an approval for a storage unit project. That property that's to the north of that, but yet south of the MTech facility, that be designated medium-density residential instead of mixed use. So that particular change would simply eliminate the prospect of having non-residential zones assigned to that property, those that are, again, identified in the text of the general plan, and would designate a more specific density for the property if it were to be given a residential zone with a density not to exceed 8 units to the acre. Medium density residential is that yellow color that we see there. And then as well, with any of the proposals that we as staff suggest that you consider tonight, we would suggest that the property on the corner, again, that we associate with the storage unit proposal, that be designated just simply commercial on the plan. We don't view that as a suitable site, at least at this time, for any kind of residential development. So that really is those are the only two changes that we're suggesting that you consider. There is another option that I think is worth at least talking about. This came about from a conversation that I had with one of the neighbors. We haven't received a lot of input on this particular proposal, at least not to date. But again, one of the neighbors suggested that they would be more comfortable if, in addition to the property that I've described that's proposed to be designated medium-density residential, the MTech facility and the property that's between that and ALA, where Arrive Homes has had their townhome project approved, if that were also designated medium-density residential, because they like the idea that the ceiling of the medium-density residential designation, I say density here a lot, so the most units per acre, at least in theory, that you could have with that designation is 8. Whereas if, for example, should maybe the MTech facility be raised and redeveloped at some point in the future, or maybe if some of the yet developed property were developed somehow that's associated right now with that campus, the mixed use designation, again, that blue designation, that would allow for 12 units to the acre instead of a ceiling of 8 with the medium density. So again, it's just something else for you to consider, perhaps making everything along that corridor medium density residential, except for what's just down at the corner. I think that's worth considering for the reason that was just mentioned. Let me also mention that as the Development Review Committee was discussing the different options that exist, I think it was the city manager that suggested that we consider the MTech property and how it's zoned, and potentially change the zoning of that. So tonight, with nothing that I'm presenting here, we ready or suggesting that you contemplate a zone change, but we have reached out to MTech to talk to them about having all of the property associated with that facility zoned public facilities. Right now it's business park. The public facilities zone, in effect, really doesn't change at all how they would or could operate, just given how Utah state law applies to public schools and local land use regulations. But we do think that that is an appropriate zoning district for something that operates the way that it does and for what it is. And personally, I think that if I were a neighbor, I would take some comfort in having that property zoned public facilities rather than business park or perhaps some residential zone, with simply then the understanding being that there would be one additional hoop that somebody would have to go through to seek approval from you as the city council before that property ever could be repurposed in any way. Now, that being said, I know there have been rumors about that facility perhaps changing at some point in time, maybe sooner than later. I have nothing to substantiate any of those rumors that we've heard from MTech, any of its staff, anyone at all. But indeed, I guess our suggestion is in part to try to help maybe mitigate some of those concerns and fears that neighbors might have. So that would happen on a separate track, but that might be something that you see on one of your agendas in the future. Again, we've corresponded with MTEX folks. They want to confer with the Utah Attorney General's office, just to understand exactly what that would mean for them before they weigh in and give us their thoughts. But that's where we're at with kind of a, maybe again, a sister issue to what's on the table tonight. I just have one last thought, again, relative to what staff has proposed with what we see there as option 2 and what, again, one of the neighbors suggested that you consider in terms of making everything but the corner medium density residential. With the proposed text changes, you also have an option to set a ceiling on the residential density of any projects that are developed in the mixed use designation. So right now, the highest density that would be allowed in that designation would be 12 units to the acre. You could simply instruct staff to change that and to drop that to 8 units to the acre as maybe a way of both recognizing sort of the combination of uses that we see now along the Del Monte corridor with MTech, townhomes, and that relationship, and the concern about not having a density that exceeds 8 homes to the acre. That all being said, do you have any questions for me?
We might after we have our public hearing.
Okay.
So with that, let's go into public hearing. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Anyone that would like to come and talk about this issue, you're sure welcome to come up and address the mayor and the council. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon.
Second.
Second by Councilman Gordon, or Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, do we have any questions for Dave?
So, come back, Dave. So which one of these are you recommending?
We call it option 2. It's what we're showing right there, which is a combination of a commercial designation on the corner, a medium density residential designation, and a mixed use designation. The vacant property on the corridor, which frankly I think probably at this point is the most important thing to focus on, that would be designated medium density residential, which right now would allow for no more than 8 units to the acre. That would happen with zoning, R3 zoning, and staff recommending that a master plan development be approved with no more than, like I said, 8 units to the acre.
But you also said you're not sure what MTech, what this does to if we change them to a residential from a mixed use?
Oh, I am sure about what it does to MTech. It doesn't do anything to them because local zoning laws aren't applicable to public schools in Utah, and that indeed is what they are. So they can operate, as I understand it, under maybe different guidelines, however they'd care to. I think the issue with that property really simply has to do with anything that might change in the future if they were to abandon the site or something like that.
Thanks, Dave.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So can we make a motion with one of the other options?
Oh, yeah. You can make any motion you want, if you can get a second for it.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 01-21, changing the general plan designation text and amending the official general plan map of Spanish Fork City for the Del Monte Road General Plan Amendment, option 3.
Okay, I've got a motion by Councilman Argal for amending with option 3. Do I have a second? Hearing none, that motion,
Could Dave
Whoop.
tell us the difference between option 2 and option 3? Those probably look pretty close on a map.
It's really the MTech property.
That's it.
That's it, yeah.
So I'd maybe just have a question for you, Councilman Arden. Are you trying to protect the MTech, or what,
So,
the difference between 2 and 3 being how it lays over the MTech? We want to make sure to understand what that
okay,
is.
so the blue part of it is a higher density, 12. We went through a pretty good program getting that to where it's at, and I just don't see extending that any more than what it was and what we did.
Okay.
And then moving that to the MTech property, even there's whatever future there, we can always change that, but that keeps that density low, and that was one of the biggest
Lower,
issues.
okay.
Lower than what it was.
But your idea is to bring that back at a later date with, after you hear from MTech, to change it to a different facility. Did I
Great
hear that
question,
correct?
great question. Relative to the general plan, I don't think that's what I would suggest that you do. I think you certainly can act on the general plan tonight. Again, particularly with this being an advisory document, I'm much less concerned about having their explicit consent and involvement as we go through this process than I am with zoning, which is the actual law. You know, and again, they're really, really a unique operation relative to zoning law and how it impacts them. So I'm certainly less concerned even at that level with them than I would be, you know, a typical property owner in the community. But I think the general plan and the proposal tonight, it's ready to act on if you want to. For that matter, if you'd like us to look at any other combinations, if you want to give us different direction relative to things to focus on, anything at all, and to have us bring something back at a future date, we certainly can do that as well. I don't think there is a big rush, I would say, to make the changes that are proposed tonight. We did want to be timely in responding to the direction that you've given us, and we've tried to be, while also being sensitive, and I don't at all want to gloss over the Tingy property and the fact that we're working very actively with the Tingy family. And I believe they've engaged, I know they've engaged an engineering firm to design a development for their property. They're working with a particular home builder that they'd like to have, at least potentially purchase the property and develop it. So, you know, they're kind of going down their path on one track, anticipating that changes will be made and trying to, you know, maybe guess exactly where that's going to end up and what they will be subject to when they bring a zone change back. I shouldn't say back, but when they bring a zone change to the Planning Commission and the council sometime. I think in their minds, they'd like to do that in the next few months. That's probably the only thing from a timing perspective that I think has any sensitivity here.
so did the planning and zoning, did they consider both those options? Is this the option they landed on?
We presented the 5 different scenarios that we have in the staff report. I mentioned the other one, which again, it just came out of a conversation that I had with one of the neighbors, which is more consistent with what Councilman Argyle's suggesting, having more of the property designated medium-density residential, less of it mixed use. Anyway, that certainly is on the table as well. That's an option.
So they discussed this, and this was the option they were comfortable with.
The Planning Commission recommended that the changes be made to the text and that the council approve option 2.
2, okay.
And Dave, can I just ask, you mentioned maybe instead of in the mixed-use area from 5 to 12, we can say 5 to 8?
You certainly could. So more
Is
specifically.
that what you suggested? Or would you suggest just to approve option 2 and leave it at 5 to 12? Does that make sense?
absolutely. And it's pretty rare that I have no opinion at all, but truly, I don't. I think that difference is pretty negligible. And as I've looked at other parts of the community, and incidentally, the land use map of the general plan has the mixed use designation throughout the city.
Right.
In lots of different situations. And those properties just as easily could develop at no more than 8 units to the acre as 12 units to the acre. And I don't think the community necessarily comes out ahead or behind under either of those options. I really think that is for you to decide.
And what's the arrived development? How many units per acre is that again?
I
that
think
8?
just barely over 9.
Okay.
So on our option 2, it says 3.5 to 8, and option 3 says the same.
It does.
So
just take
is that
that
what
in.
it is?
Just
Is
takes
it
that
8
in.
or is it 12?
8 for the yellow, 12
Okay.
for the blue.
All
So you
right.
can see the
Okay.
yellow and the blue
All
just
right.
barely change, and that really is just intended to cover,
Okay.
I'm going to say, the majority of the MTech campus.
Okay, I'm with you.
And maybe one additional thought, as it relates to how the site is today, the MTech site, there is no other use, right? It's a school parking lot and the associated use that is the MTech. If we change the zone for it to public facilities, which would then kind of bind the property to the MTech use unless there is a change later, this designation, this general plan designation, whether it be the blue mixed use or the yellow residential, really is less important because of the public facility zone. If there's greater comfort for you in having the residential, lower density residential general plan in the larger option 3 designation there shown on this map, then from our perspective, it's the same. The use won't change unless the school wants to change. And I think, as Dave mentioned, having the zone changed probably is the best protection for, anything. If it were to change throughout town, at this elementary school or that elementary school, they typically are the zone that is the surrounding area. So if it's East Meadows is R19, which is what the surrounding area is zoned, and if you look at other places, it's generally zoned similar to what the surrounding area is. So I think this designation is fine if that's what you want to do as well. Really, it both accomplish the goal that you probably are trying to accomplish in changing somewhat the use there from what's allowed in the mixed use to what is allowed in something less.
For me, in response to Chad's motion, would be just that we haven't spoke with MTech, and until we do, or at least understand, as their private property rights, that my main focus is on the Tingy piece, and were there discussions about even making this different between not just all yellow? Perhaps watching Planning Commission, seeing something with a higher density product along Del Monte, just the transition. Can you speak to that? If
That
there was-
indeed is the concept that we've been discussing with the Tingies. The idea that the part of that parcel that abuts Del Monte Road would look a lot like Arrive's development. Townhomes, like probably similar number of units per acre, but that the portion of that property that abuts the subdivision to the west, that be single-family homes. So right now, if things haven't changed, and I don't think they probably have since the last concept that I saw, at least not much, they've indeed proposed that there would be a row of lots for single-family homes abutting the single-family homes in the Old Mill Estates development, and that everything then to the east of that over to Del Monte Road would be developed as townhomes, again, looking similar to what to what Arrive had approved in their project. So just a couple of thoughts on that. I think that's certainly an idea worth considering if you're looking at maybe having an additional designation added to the map to reflect your desire to see that distinct development pattern on the Tingey property. That would probably, in my opinion, involve, well, it could happen a couple of different ways. The estate density designation that now exists to the west of the Tingey property simply could bleed over, if you will, onto some part of the Tingey property. Or, I think you're familiar with Quail Hollow and River Cove, the developments just to the east. You can maybe see that that's a distinct color representing a distinct designation from what we have to the west of the Tingey property. That simply is a little bit higher density designation. You could do a strip as well of that on the Tingey property that I think also would send a clear signal that single-family homes need to be included as part of that project, something of a transition from Old Mill Estates over to townhomes next to Del Monte.
But it sounds like that's already in the works, right?
That's probably my thought, just
And if-
relative to my
If
opinion.
that's what we want in the future, we could send it back and say, no, we want a buffer of single-family dwellings before it goes to.
You're right. We don't have to create some
Yeah, I think if
special
we-
plan just
yeah.
for that.
You'd
as
have
long
that
as that is
latitude, but I'll also
understood.
say this, and I'm sorry.
No, I
didn't mean
would just that, you reiterated exactly what I've been hearing the neighbors say, is that we want, like homes, abutting their
Right.
backyards type situation, yeah.
That is counsel that we've taken seriously and that the Planning Commission took seriously. We have taken in a concept plan for the Tingey property to the Planning Commission for them to review, which is customary. We don't typically bring those to the council. And I think frankly for a lot of different reasons, largely because of the experience that we had with the Rives project and just concerns that were discussed through that deliberation. We understand clearly that you expect to see a little different development pattern of the Tingey property than what we have with the Rives, so.
So it kind of, to me, it sounds like after discussing that option 2 or 3, it's 6s because pretty soon MTech will be zoned public facility, and then it won't matter, right? So we could approve either one, and once the public facility gets zoned, it's going to be 6s?
I think it's more a matter of your preference
Okay,
than actual impact on the ground.
okay.
But what you said earlier was you've reached out to MTech, so they're discussing it with their, so.
That's the reason for what my comment earlier.
And I agree with.
And I'll make a motion, if it's okay, Mayor, to approve ordinance number 1-21, changing the general plan designation text and amending the official general plan map of Spanish Fork City for the Del Monte Road general plan amendment with option number 2.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Gordon,
Second.
second from Councilmember Beck. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
All right, that passes. All right, new business, preliminary plat for the Haymaker Master Plan Development.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. You can see from this image, we got the subject property there that's shaded in that yellow color, and wrapped around kind of the eastern half of it are homes. Obviously, they're built. This is a picture. Those are some of the first phases of Legacy Farms. So this is north of 400 North, but really not too far north of 400 North. The property that's just to the west, in this case, of the subject property, is land that was dedicated to Spanish Fork City to be part of a park as part of the Legacy Farms development. We think this site is really, really ripe for development. The timing's great. The proposal, likewise, I think is great. We saw a previous proposal by the applicant that would have changed the density here, would have been significantly higher to more closely match what surrounds it. And Legacy Farms, the proposal then was to have 9,000 square foot lots for a variety of different reasons. We as staff recommended that the applicant abandon that effort, and we really appreciate that rather than to continue down that path, they've opted simply to follow the city's general plan. In fact, not only the general plan, but also the existing zoning. And what you see tonight is a master plan development in the R112 zone. So it's proposed that they be allowed to deviate from some of our fundamental zoning requirements in a few different ways. But as I mentioned earlier, again, with property that's zoned R112, where the minimum lot size is 12,000 square feet, this applicant with this design has an average lot size of over 13,000 square feet. These will be larger lots, particularly because of the width of the lots, at least most of the lots. I think driving down the street, people will notice a distinct difference between this particular part of the overall neighborhood and what surrounds it with Legacy Farms. And I think that particular diversity, even though it's not a huge difference, I think it's something that will enhance the neighborhood. This project will accommodate a different type of home than particularly what the earliest phases of Legacy Farms, where I think the average lot width was not far off of 60 feet. Now we're probably talking about an average lot width of closer to 100 feet. Again, accommodating a very different home than what people could fit on the lots in Legacy Farms surrounding it. Also, we think this really sets the stage for the development of some of the last remaining vacant parcels on the north side of 400 North in the area, to where the general plan right now has those designated such that R112 zoning would be what staff recommends be approved. And again, with this project's approval, I think it makes it a lot harder for an applicant to make a case for a zoning district that's more dense than that. And I say that, not having any bias necessarily against density, in the right place and in the right way. Certainly no bias against single-family homes on 9,000 square foot lots, but particularly with Legacy Farms, there are a lot of 7, 8, 9,000 square foot lots. So again, just in the spirit of having a neighborhood that has a different maybe option for a home buyer than what currently we have, I think this is a great addition in that regard. So that's more than I intended to say about a pretty straightforward proposal. The property's zoned. Again, not only that, but the design, I think, really matches well with some of the comments that we've heard from both the council and the planning commission lately. So the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission both have recommended that the project be approved with 47 lots.
Great. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve the preliminary plat for the Haymaker Master Plan Development based on the findings and subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scopes, second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Resolution 21-01 indicating intent to adjust a common boundary with Springville City.
Mayor and Council, this request considers the property located near the Young Living facility. It's located a little bit east of their site. This current city boundary splits between two parcels that are owned by the same owner. So the adjustment would put both of those parcels in Springville City. Spanish Fork would get a parcel that would be used for the future 3450 North right-of-way for that road. The process to do this is as a boundary adjustment. It's not an annexation. It's merely adjusting an existing boundary between the two cities, so it takes both cities' consent. The process is to adopt a resolution indicating the intent to do that, then doing the notice, the public hearing, And finally, after the public hearing, an ordinance to approve the boundary adjustment. If the city receives objections from 25% of the private land area or 15% of the private land value, then that would halt the process to adjust the boundary. But if no objections are received, you can go forward with the adjustment.
Great. Any questions?
Does this move Young Living out of Spanish Fork?
No, Young Living will stay in Spanish Fork. I didn't know how to refer to the property. It's just east of there. Maybe you
Okay.
could bring up a...
That's
There we
on
go.
their addition. Keeps them split a road
see, where are
so
we?
they can be in our city. Okay.
It's just south of 2700 North. Let me get my bearings.
Yeah, we went and get them too.
Right there. So zoom in a little bit on the northwest corner. Yeah, right in there. So that green roof building, the boundary goes in between the green roof building and the lot behind it right now. And so it would then include the lot behind, yes. So that parking lot area and the storage yard back there would all become part of Springville City.
Oh, okay.
Historically, this is one of those kind of weird things because the building is in Springville, but its back lot, its yard, its storage is in Spanish Fork. So this would move that whole property into Springville, but then give Young Living the ability to do some of their development and just keep it all in Spanish Fork.
Tyler, can you pan down just a little bit?
How do I-
Drag it. So you can see where 3450 North stubs into that open field right now. So that parcel just to the east of where Tyler's cursor is, right around in there, would come into Springville or into Spanish Fork City.
Okay.
Well, I'll move that we approve resolution number 21-01 indicating intent to adjust a common boundary with Springville City.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. This also will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Okay, board appointments. I would like to appoint Jake Tyre as our UMPA board alternate and the UMPA technical committee member. Garrett Elmer as our UMPA tech committee alternate. Jake Tyre as our SUVPS board alternate and SUVPS technical committee member, and Garrett Elmer as our SUVPS technical committee alternate. Also on our RAP committee, I'd like to appoint Haley Hughes and Deidre Gunnels.
I move to approve the mayor's board appointments as presented.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, library phase 1 change order number 1, Westland Construction.
Haven't even started building yet.
Well, Mayor and Council, how are you? So to start, as a representative of the engineering division, we think the election was stolen from us. And Rudy Giuliani will be here to see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Be
You're the-
awesome.
So, do you have this? Or do I just need to talk about it? Oh, just the memo. Maybe I can, staff report. Well, no, not for these old eyes. I got it.
One of those voting, wastewater division would have had this all taken care of.
No, I do want to congratulate wastewater.
Yeah.
I have been working with them for the last few months on the wastewater treatment plant and the project I'm about to bring up, so they are well deserved of it. So anyway, this change order is, if you remember, the first change order was to demolish the old church at the library. The second change order is to, well, let's see, the first one was a phase 1. This is a change order to phase 1. And it authorizes for the excavation and the import of fill for the material. And we feel like this will give them a head start in spring when they start on the building, and hopefully get it enclosed before winter and save us some money on imported fill. There is a deduct with this. I think you've seen it in there of $44,000. So it's our recommendation. You've probably seen they were digging already. I kind of stuck my neck out there a little ways. So if you don't approve it, I guess you'll take it out of my wage. So we'd recommend
We
this.
build the whole building for that.
Yeah, right.
Chris, you've never put it that way.
So if there's any other questions you have on it?
Anybody have any questions? We don't. You presented well. You know,
Well,
I'll
thank-
vote for you next year.
Well, yeah, thank you.
I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve library Phase 1, change order number 1, Westland Construction.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal,
Second.
second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. All right, West Interchange Sewer Trunk Lane, guaranteed maximum price.
So,
Whitaker Construction.
yeah, so with me here tonight, we have Lynn Jorgensen with Whitaker Construction, and Perry Osborne. He is with Sunrise Engineering. This has been kind of a long process to get to this point, but these two have worked together along with Corey and myself and Jared. They've come up with this guaranteed maximum price. We forced them to put the contingency on there. They've guaranteed us that the numbers they have is the number it will be to finish this project. There is a lot of dewatering, railroad crossings. It's just going to be a bear. And so going through this, we were well within our budget. It's close to the end, but we're well within it. We would recommend that we approve this and that we can get them a notice of award after tonight.
Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the West Interchange Sewer Trunk Line Project guaranteed maximum price.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon,
Second.
second by Councilmember Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
You got it done? Hey, we've got our part done. Let's get your part done. All right, let's use both hands. Get going on it. That'd be great. Looking forward to it. Good. All right. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to local building authority.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. Resolution LBA 2101, consideration for adoption of resolution adopting bylaws for local building authority of Spanish Fork, Utah.
Board members, I call you that because you're not the mayor and council anymore. You're members of the Board of Trustees of the Local Building Authority. At your last meeting in December 8th, the city council created the Local Building Authority, and that as a tool to do the financing of our library project. And so tonight, in the first meeting of the Local Building Authority, what you probably should do first is somebody on the board make a motion to appoint a temporary chair. Then that chair can run the meeting until they adopt the resolution. The resolution includes the appointment of officers. And as far as the officers go, I would recommend, and the resolution is drafted that way, that the mayor serve as the Board of Trustees president, and the mayor pro tem be the vice president, and then the secretary treasurer would be the city recorder, so that whoever's in those positions, as they may change over time, would automatically be those officers of the Local Building Authority. So
I would make that motion that the mayor is the chair, mayor pro tem is the vice chair, and the treasurer is the secretary.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thanks for doing that. So on your agenda tonight, you'll see there's three things. There's two things in the local building authority agenda, and then we'll adjourn back to the reconvene to the city council and pass a city council resolution. But let me just go over those three things. The first thing is the resolution of the local building authority approving the bylaws and making those election of officers formalized in the resolution. The second is the parameters resolution for the bond that we were hoping to do. And Jonathan Ward's here, you can talk about that, but that basically sets the maximum interest rate, the maximum borrowing amount, and also schedules a public hearing for that bond issue. Then, once we get back into the city council meeting, there's a city council resolution that authorizes a master lease agreement where the city would lease from the local building authority this new building, a ground lease where the city would lease to the local building authority the ground that the city owns, and a bond purchase contract, and then also authorizes the issuance of the lease revenue bonds. That is basically the three things that we're going to cover tonight. Is there any questions about any of that? Okay.
All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution LBA 21-01, consideration for adoption of a resolution adopting bylaws for the local building authority of Spanish Fork City, Utah, confirming the election of officers for such authority and authorizing other action on behalf of the authority in related matters.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Scobes, a second by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
All right, let's move to resolution LBA 2102. I'd entertain a motion on that.
Motion to approve Resolution LBA 21-2, consideration of adoption of resolution of the local building authority of Spanish Fork City, Utah, authorizing the issuance of sale or not more than not more than 23 million aggregate principal amount of lease bond revenue, Series 2021, on related matters.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal,
Second.
second by Councilmember Beck. This is also a roll call vote. Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
I'd entertain a motion to go out of,
Mayor, may I
oh,
make a comment about something there?
He's not the mayor right now. He's
I'm
just
sorry,
the chair.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. You got it.
Yeah.
Corrected.
He's been
Let's-
sucked of
let's
his
get it
powers
right.
like the Black Panther for a moment, if you will. Entertain me there for a moment.
Go ahead.
Your Majesty.
Better.
It's better.
While we've got Mr. Ward here from our as our financial advisor, it may be worth noting, and he can certainly give more detail, but with this parameters resolution that you've just approved, there is, I don't know, do you want to talk about it now or do you want to talk about it when we go back? Which is better? I guess we can talk about it when we go back. I've already hijacked the meeting.
Yeah, we are good.
We've had some great developments with this and doing. Jonathan, come and talk about it. You're better.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what Seth's alluding to is just market developments. First of the year, appetite for bond purchasing is really high. We had a phone call or conversation with a local investment or investor, local financial institution, who said, we'd love to be able to put our money to use. We said, well, if you can match the market rates, that would be fantastic. We could entertain some discussions with you. They did. This was Bank of Utah, who said, we'd love to be an investor in this project. Moreover, they offer extremely flexible call features for the city. at market rates, which we don't typically see. If we sell bonds in the public markets, we see prepayment provisions that limit the ability of the city to make that type of prepayment. But they've offered to give us maximum flexibility for all intents and purposes at the same interest rates that we would get in the public market space, which is about, on average, at 1.67% for 20 years fixed, which is really remarkable. In addition, we're able to eliminate about $700,000 of what I consider superfluous expense called capitalized interest, because they're able to buy and understand and explain the legal and potential credit ramifications of not having this capitalized interest in the financing. So it's really turned into an opportunity that we're trying to pursue. So although we have, for instance, under the parameters, $23 million of principal that would be authorized, we'd probably sell closer to $20 million with the option, if we don't need it, to just turn it back and give it back to the investor, so that then we would re-amortize the payment schedule going forward, which is really nice, which option we don't typically have when we sell bonds in the public markets. If you recall, on the water and sewer bonds, the prepayment provisions restricted us from any sort of prepayment in the first 10 years, which is common for municipal bond transactions. This is unique, gives us a little bit of added flexibility and some reduced expense along with it because of the lack of what we call capitalized interest. So sort of fun.
Did a much better job than Seth, so thank you.
And thank you for that.
Yes.
And this will give us a lot of flexibility. It's great that it's a local bank, too, keeping that capital here, but it'll give us some flexibility when we put our bond package together. The parameters resolution goes way beyond what we'll actually bond for. But in all reality, let's say the bond may be $20 million, but we may only actually spend 19.2. We're getting in that final stages of budget, plus there's contingency. And so what they've been able to work out is that one-time reduction in the loan, and they'll re-amortize everything. So we can actually just get it right when we're all said and done and give money back, take it out of the principal, adjust our loan payments, and have it the debt service scheduled again. This is a great opportunity, and an interest rate that is fantastic.
Yep,
Super
really
exciting
good.
development.
Thank you.
Great.
So, we appreciate Jonathan's work on this.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. All right, I'd entertain a motion to reconvene back into city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, new business. Resolution 2102, considering the adoption of a resolution of the City Council of the Spanish Fork authorizing and approving the executive and delivering of a master lease agreement between the city and local LBA. I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 21-02, consideration for adoption of a resolution of the City Council of Spanish Fork City, Utah, authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a master lease agreement by and between the city and the local building authority of Spanish Fork City, Utah, known as the Authority, a ground lease agreement, and a bond purchase contract, authorizing the issuance and sale by the authority of its lease revenue bond, Series 2021, in an aggregate principal amount of not more than $23 million and related matters.
A motion by Councilman Scobes,
Second.
second by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Argyle.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
That passes. All right.
I move we go into closed session, unless is there any discussion items?
No.
No? We're good. Move we go into closed session for reasonably imminent litigation and land transaction.
Got a
Second.
motion by Councilman Gordon, second by
Second.
Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for council being here and watching it. and have a good night.